It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 20th, 1999. Only 3 films to look at today, so without further ado, let's get into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend: Hugh Grant, James Caan, and Jeanne Tripplehorn in Mickey Blue Eyes.
My father's head of the Guaziosi crime family.
I don't want to marry your father. Dad.
Try this. Forget about it.
Yeah, no odds.
Hey, forget about it.
Who's your friend?
This is Mickey Blue Eyes. I don't.
What?
Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. Mickey Blue Eyes.
You talk funny.
Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, August 20th.
So you've got Hugh Grant starring as this English auctioneer living in New York City who becomes entangled in his soon-to-be father-in-law's mafia connections. And, I mean, that premise there, that trailer there pretty much shows you the entire plot of the movie. It's a fish-out-of-water story. They've got to take this English guy and turn him into a New York mafioso. And the hilarity ensues, as they put it. But there's not really a whole lot of hilarity in this movie. In fact, this film really was a major letdown. I mean, there's a funny idea of having Hugh Grant having to act like a mafioso in New York, but not the way this movie does it. It pretty much goes where you think it's going to go. There's going to be that point where they're going to figure out the truth, and there's going to be this big breakup at the end, a big third-act split. Everybody has to go their separate ways, and then they'll eventually come back together again. And it'd be fine if the jokes and the material were working, but the jokes in here are pretty much the same stuff you've seen over and over and over again. And these mafia stereotypes, there's a lot of mafia stereotypes in this. In fact, a lot of the actors in this movie are people that would later be seen in The Sopranos, which debuted the same year. Actually, it might have actually been on the air while this movie came out. But yeah, a lot of the people that were in The Sopranos are in this movie, and it's just kind of like, it just really, there's a lot of potential there, but just not the right execution. They don't have the really good director there to really make it work. This director, Kelly Macon, he's made some decent films. His Senior Trip was pretty funny. So was Kids in the Hall Brain Candy. But here, not so much. And this was produced by Elizabeth Hurley, too. I guess this is part of that deal she made after Hugh Grant kind of screwed her over with her back in the mid-90s. Like, okay, you'll be able to produce several of my movies, and not the good ones. Extreme Measures, and now this one. It's just not there, man. There's just not enough material there to make it work. It feels kind of like they took a golden opportunity here and just kind of made it a generic movie. It's a generic, mediocre rom-com that should have been a whole lot better, should be a whole lot better, but once it's said and done, it's just not there. I mean, everybody's not really giving it their all in here. It just feels like it's kind of a film that they had to make because, hey, let's cash in on these names around here, and The Sopranos is about to become real popular. We'll cash in on that too. And the film itself just leads to a bland, mixed bag of a film. A really lackluster film. Even if you watch it one time, you're still not going to get what you should get out of this film, unfortunately. But so that's Mickey Blue Eyes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is the return of Jean-Claude Van Damme in the sequel that I know everybody was asking for 7 years after the first film came out. Universal Soldier: The Return.
Prepare for the ultimate battle.
The Unisols are taking over!
Between the original Universal Soldier
There used to be one of them.
and a new breed of fighting machines. Hand to hand,
Dangerous.
head to head.
You're right.
The winner controls the future.
You know you can't win.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
This is not your lucky day.
Universal Soldier: The Return.
I mean, come on, it's been 7 years, and Universal Soldier was not big enough of a success to warrant that long of a wait for a sequel. If you're going to make a sequel to this, you have to do it within 3 to 4 years after the movie came out, maybe even 2 years. I mean, Under Siege came out the very same year, and they had a sequel for that 3 years after it came out. But even in 1999, Jean-Claude Van Damme's star power was not where it was when Universal Soldier came out. And you don't have Roland Emmerich back as the director here, so just everything going against this movie right off the get-go. And you basically have the story that's a direct sequel to the original Universal Soldier, where you have Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, who was the only surviving member of the original Universal Soldier team. He now works on this project to create and improve a new Universal Soldier, and their plan is for the Universal Soldier, or Unisols, to be controlled by this computer named Seth, played by Michael Jai White. When the government decides to terminate the project, which includes shutting down Seth, not wanting this to happen, takes steps to prevent this. He first kills Dylan, and then he transforms himself into a body, and then he seeks out Luke, who is the only person who knows the code that will stop the program from being deleted. So he sends out all Unisouls to get him. Luke must try to stay away from him until he's deleted, but Seth targets his daughter as possible leverage, and do you really need me to tell you what happens next? Not only do I feel bad for Jean-Claude Van Damme for having to come back to do this, I feel bad for Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White is a damn good actor, but man, they were just putting him in some really, really bad stuff like this, and then also before that, Spawn. The guy's a great actor, man. I mean, he deserves a lot better than this. And Bill Goldberg's in here too, the wrestler, and I hope you like that, because that's the only notable things about this movie. This thing came and went, and nobody really cared about this movie. I mean, like I said, it's been 7 years since since the first film, and that film did not have that big of a legacy where it could wait so many years for a sequel. People will just come back and see it again. You need to have a hook. Like, if you're going to do this, get Roland Emmerich to come back. Find a way to bring Dolph Lundgren back, even though by this point his career was also kind of a downward spiral at this point. Like, give him a better script at least too. Like, this just feels wasted potential on so many levels. There's no fun factor in here whatsoever. A waste of some really good talent. It's just a pointless sequel. It's a sequel that really should have come out just a few years after the first film did, not almost a decade afterwards. That's where the biggest mistake of the film really fell apart here. But, hey, they made sequels after this, so I guess it had somewhat of a following after that. But, yeah, this is a mess of a film. So, that's Universal Soldier: The Return. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, and that is Teaching Mrs. Tingle with Katie Holmes and Helen Mirren.
For 20 years, Mrs. Tingle has terrorized her students.
The smartest girl in school caught cheating.
I am innocent.
Even the innocent burn at the stake.
Oh my god. We should give her mouth to mouth.
Now, three friends
I'm not gonna do it.
are about to wind up in an impossible situation.
So Jerry Springer.
Teaching Mrs. Tingle. Rated PG-13. In theaters Friday, August 20th.
Of course, this is directed by Kevin Williamson, who makes his directorial debut after working on the Scream films and The Faculty, which came out the previous Christmas. And a fun fact, this was actually supposed to be called Killing Mrs. Tingle, but was delayed and later retitled due to the uproar of teen violence in films, mostly because of what happened at Columbine in the earlier of the year. And you have a story here where you have a group of high school seniors who must prove their innocence by their vindictive history teacher, played by Helen Mirren, who accuses them of cheating on their final exams. And chaos ensues, and the three actresses are Marissa Coughlan, Barry Watson from Seventh Heaven, and Katie Holmes, who was making a success on Dawson's Creek. And, I mean, there was a potential in this movie, but just not the right execution. I feel like this is a film that it really felt like Kevin Williamson really didn't have his heart in this one, which is you would think that with your first film as a director, you'd put more effort into this film, but sadly that's not the case. And also it doesn't help the fact that it was released around the same time as Election, which was a much better, darker comedy set in high school. And this just feels like a film that was kind of dumped out there once what happened with Columbine happened, and they just really did not have an idea of what to do with it afterwards. And the end result here is a film that really, really was a missed opportunity on so many levels. I mean, the actors are trying their best. I mean, Helen Mirren will usually never turn in a bad performance, even in a bad movie. But other than that, though, it just feels like a film that had so much more potential to it, but it was just completely wasted. And didn't help the fact that you had this major tragedy in the U.S. that happened at that point, which kind of dinged this film's potential overall. It was just not the right time to release this film. And even if you did, it really wouldn't have helped in the end, honestly. A largely forgettable film, honestly. I saw it once, never really had the desire to go back to watch it again, and not much more to say about that one. So that's Teaching Mrs. Tingle. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we'll have 6 movies to look at to wrap up August. We have John McTiernan's second film released in August of 1999, Antonio Banderas' The 13th Warrior. We also have In Too Deep, Johnny Depp and Charlize Theron and The Astronaut's Wife, Albert Brooks' The Muse, Brendan Fraser in Dudley Do-Right, and A Dog of Flanders, based off the best-selling book. So 6 films to look at next time, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys again tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.